They were found in this Range Rover. 3 dead men, no one knew who they were, what they were doing, or why they fell victim to cold-blooded murder.
Hello and welcome back to another Essex Boys case rant. I really didn't want to use the word welcome because it sounds so cheesy. This is another Essex Boys case rant. I haven't done one of these for a while. I've been potting it off. I'm good at that. I was meant to have done one back when Steve Niprellis and John Williams done their James English interviews, but I was waiting for them to do the follow-ups, but that unfortunately never happened. And so since then, I've been potting it. So if you've heard one of these before, you know they're not the best quality because I am recording this at work. And so, yeah, the quality's not great. I probably will swear. I say a lot, and just apologies for the actual content in general because it is just literally somebody rambling on at work or ranting on about the case. Been meaning to do one of these for such a long time. There's so much to say, and it's trying to remember it all. So off the top of my head, this is probably going to be a right mess. But the reason I've decided to do one of these this evening is I was going to do one of these statements videos that I've been doing about the meal booking that Tony Tucker had made on the evening of the 6th of December for 8:30 in Romford at the Global Net Caf. There goes a car going driving past. Let me just explain before I get into things. The reason that makes this difficult to record at work is because I'm right next to a train track and a road. So, funnily enough, there is no time that people go to bed nowadays. There's constant cars going by. There's trains, freight trains. Also, I have problems with muntjacs, owls, foxes, people, obviously, when it's daytime, so I can only record at a certain time and when there's no one around. So apart from barking muntjacs and foxes and just constant disturbances, lorries, trucks and all sorts going by, it's not the easiest to record. Sometimes an hour. I get 10 minutes done in an hour when it's doing the articles or doing the statements or whatever. So just wanted to clear that up, why I don't do many videos, don't record as much as I'd like to. I prefer doing it at home. I prefer doing it at work. I'm a bit funny at home. That if the neighbours put a glass to the wall and hear me shouting about Pat Tate, they're going to think I'm a bit weirder than I already am. So I don't want to sort of. I've done a few at home, but I'd rather do them here because I can just shout as loud as I want and talk as loud, and no one thinks I'm mental apart from the muntjacs and the owls that fly over. And I can also shout at the traffic when I'm getting disturbed. And I'm pretty sure a car's about to go by now. And it's like, oh no, it's a man on a bike. You're right, mate. So anyway, listen, getting on with it because I'm rambling as usual. So much to say of the last 5-6 months since I've done one of these. The original rant, oh God, thinking back to it now. I recorded it with the heating on. There was no plan on putting it on YouTube. It was meant to be an audio for a couple of mates that I'd recorded, and I just the original rant that went up on YouTube, I cut the first 15 minutes off because it was talking about a certain person that shall not be named because he'll pull the video for a defamation of character, the last ones, or copyright, or whatever it was. Without mentioning that person's name, I rambled on about his new book he had coming out, and just kept going for an hour and a half, and like I say, swearing on it, and it is rough, and it got pulled for some of the photos I used within it at the same time as Crime Scene to Courtrooms channel getting pulled and a couple of other channels on the case closing down. Yeah, so it was pulled for some of the photos that were used within that video, as were a lot of Crime Scenes videos. And so when I went to reload it, I just cut the first 50 minutes off because it was talking about that certain person. And I just thought, I've already had a copyright warning for some of the photos I've used of his. And I don't particularly want another warning strike from YouTube for defamation of character. So I just cut the first 15 minutes off, which to be honest, I really wish I'd left on because it seems so suited for now. And the fact of that certain person doesn't seem to be walking away from the case. And after this book that is released, there's going to be another one released. But I ain't going to go on about that. Well, I probably will later anyway, or something like that. So no way at all was them original rants meant to be of any sort of quality. I say now, any noise at all when I'm recording here, fridge has to go off and heating has to go off. And like I say, constant disturbances from noises. And yet on the original Rant, you've got this of a fan going off. So it just... I've recently come off the back of recording Heath Mayfield's book, Mr. X and the Essex Boys. Just want to say thank you to Heath Mayfield for giving me permission to record the book. And also, if you've not heard the 7 parts of the book that I've done, or if you've wanted to read it, get over to Visual Feast Publishing, and Heath's book's available on there. Or if you want to listen to it on audio, I've made a playlist, and I do intend on trying to stick them all together as one video, just like Crime Scene to Courtroom was just recently done with his blogs reading. If you've not heard any of the parts of the blogs 19 book by Mr. Darren Nichols, who recently had a birthday, but that was like back in April. That's as long as I've been potting this off. So happy birthday to Darren, if you're listening to this, which would be, well, I know you're listening to this, 100%. I know you are. I know that you're listening to every video. You're listening to every video and every article that gets read out on the YouTube channels to do with the case. I know you're on the groups, you're on the Facebook groups, you're in Essex Boys Then and Now, you're in Essex Boys, The Truth and Nothing But the Truth. All the other Facebook groups. I know you're keeping an eye on everything, and I know 100% you're listening to this. So happy birthday, Darren. I hope you got what you want. I hope you got exactly what you want. I'm sure you got a takeaway that night. Anyway, so without going on about Darren and his weight, which I did on a lot of the other YouTube, on the other Rant videos, which I do apologise for anyone out there that's listening to this and it's the same size as Darren, or was the same size as Darren. I'm not taking a mickey. I've got a bit of a belly myself. Remember, I'm working nights, and it's not hard to work out what I do. Do you know what I mean? Considering I'm allowed to record audio at work. So, yeah, I've got a bit of a gut. But isn't it ironic? Isn't it really funny that the person that shall not be named, because you're not allowed to name him because of defamation of character and all that crap, that he's probably bigger than Darren is or was. So Darren will come out the blue one day with his sequel book to Blogs 19. Blogs 21 finally brings it out, the sequel that everybody wants, and he's stick thin. And Mr. Im, the one we shall not name, is the size of Darren now. Funny, isn't it? How, be careful what you wish for or take the mickey out of, because it can just happen to you. But I truly believe Darren must be stick thin. I'm sure I've said this before in the other rants. I'm sure he must be stick thin with all the stress that it must bring living in witness protection and having, to look over your shoulder all the time, especially when you're in Greg's. Or if he, in fact, hasn't been out because he's on lockdown because of COVID and everything. That's if Darren is still with us. I'm not, on all accounts, the stress that Darren's been living through, and also the release of Jack Worms from prison, and just the attention on the case with TMI doing their Liquid Bullet interview, and everything that's in the pipeline. Darren might be flapping a little bit, and he might have his eye over his shoulder, or not. Because what we've been told to believe about Darren over the years is he's got a bit of an attitude. And if we're meant to believe what a certain person said about Darren, that he had an affair with a woman from a pub and he had a fight in a pub or something like that along them lines. When he was caught in 2009 for dealing down in, I think it was Bristol, down in the Bristol area. And his photo was in the Sunday People with his Minecraft head, because his head was all pixelated out, and you've got him a meeting with a reporter about deals and sorting out, weed deals. And if Darren is still dealing after all these years, and after everything that's gone on, or if he was dealing up until recently, then you've got the biggest brass balls ever, mate, ain't you? Because, at the end of the day, you're in witness protection, and you're still knocking it out. You're still meeting people, and you're still, getting the old calls for, you're still being a plug for people. It's quite funny, really. I bet you wish that you had somebody to fly it over for you, don't you? But getting back to the case, and getting back to this... what this statements video was going to be about this evening, and it was going to be about the meal booking that Tony Tucker had booked for the evening of the 6th of December for Tony and for four people in total, for Tony and 3 others. So we're assuming that's going to be Craig Rolfe, Donna Jaggers, who was dropped off at the Lakeside Shopping Centre to get a new top, a new dress, whatever Craig said to get for the celebrational meal that evening. There was only 4 seats booked for that meal that evening. And this is what got me really thinking about this statement from Gary Jackets, that was the owner of the Global Net Calf in Romford. And it's because just before 7 p.m, Tony Tucker makes 2 more seats booked for the meal. So from 4 to 6. So assuming that's probably going to be Pat Tate and possibly Claire Kerry, who he'd spoken to Claire Kerry's mum that evening and said he was only going to be half an hour. So on all accounts, Pat Tate was popping out and he assumed he was going to be back within half an hour. Now, somewhere along the lines, I'd got mixed up and thought that there were 6 seats that had been booked for that meal that night. And I assumed that it was going to be Pat, Tony and Craig and their partners. And that the extra 2 seats were for 2 other people. And I had assumed that the 2 people were possibly the 4th passenger, if there was one, and the 4th passenger's partner. Now, long ago, before I really got into the case, I assumed that was Michael Steele. What we're led to believe by Darren Nichols' version of events, and everybody knows this, and I'm sorry for repeating old ground, but Darren Nichols says that Michael Steele is showing the 3 of them a plane that's going to land. It's quite funny, really. And they're going to rob it. They're going to rob the plane of all the coke. Now, this was meant to have come from Michael Steele, and it was meant to be the law to get them down the lane, and then someone's waiting in the bush. Jack Worm's waiting in the bush, and then he kills all 3. Now, put that in any other situation. If it wasn't Michael Steele and there was another 4th passenger, and the exact same thing happened, and somebody was waiting down that lane, it just doesn't. Likeness is that the shooter came from a vehicle behind the Range Rover. If that side of it is true, and you put to the side the Billy Jasper theory. Now, no, that's not going to be very popular because the Billy Jasper theory is what a lot of people do believe right now. And to be honest with you, the names that Billy Jasper's named and the people that everything that Billy Jasper's brought to the table sounds legit, because there's the reason why Tony Tucker was the real target that evening, and Craig and Pat were just collateral damage. And that's to do with money laundering. Now, I'm going to do a video about that. And everything, all the information that's been put out there so far to do with Tony Tucker and this money laundering and the names that have been bandied about and that being the real reason. And the only reason that I have doubts in that theory is literally because of the time that Billy Jasper says that they got killed. Now, if Billy Jasper said it was like 9, 10 o'clock that they got killed, it would make more sense. But because Billy Jasper said like 12, 1 o'clock, by the time he drops off the person that he named at Rectory Lane, that they made the half a mile between Rectory Lane and Workhouse Lane. Because it comes back to the meal booking. Because what really doesn't make sense in my mind is, what's the real reason they're down that lane around about 7 o'clock? Because of all accounts, there was a Range Rover seen entering Workhouse Lane at 10 to 7. It had grills over the lights, so it was probably a different Range Rover. It could have been who was with them. It could have been who was waiting for them. So if the Range Rover goes down the lane at 7 p.m, and for whatever reason, they don't make that meal booking, they're still alive. This is on the Billy Jasper's version of events. They're still alive down that lane. Now, they know they've got to return at some point, or they're sat down there from this the 5 hours, the 5 mystery hours that are all meant to be in them crates, the 124. I mean, there's got to be something in them 124 crates, because surely that's not, the police saying, what's important's out there? Now, we've got these 124 crates of crap, and we're just going to burn them or leave them there because they're not important. Somewhere within them, most people believe within them 124 crates is the truth. Is you're going to sit, look what we've got available to us already. And 300 statements or so, and the articles and all the information we've got there, because there are a few police reports amongst them statements that say a few things. So all the information we've got out there that we know is true, regardless of everything we've been told in certain books that we're not sure where that stands, because we got, careful, but we know you got told that person, a nipper got told to exaggerate. So let's just brush all that to a side and know what we know from a fact from the statements. And we don't even know if they're all true because of a certain person's statements that came out how many months after the murders, which you could do a whole video on that pretty much, couldn't you? Because the inconsistencies, like she's saying that Lakeside at 5:45 or 5:15, and then you got Rebecca Carr saying that she sees them, so the Range Rover is able to be in two places at once, that's what that Range Rover's worth winning on the raffle, if that's not already been done by the time we're listening to this. It's got 3 months left last time I looked. It's December. I just remembered what day it's been raffled on. Of all the times, if you don't know what time and what day that the raffle is, go check it out. The tickets are ironically $19.95, but it's worth getting that Range Rover because it can be two places at once. It's got warp speed apparently. You can literally you can bounce from one place to another. You can do what's that thing that the guy from The Fly done? He goes from teleport. That's it. Nightcrawler from X-Men. I've got brain freeze tonight, I'm telling you. So Donna Jaggers' statement comes out all that time later. So let's just say, apart from possibly hers and maybe a few others, that most of the statements we see are all true. Now, reading through the lines and what we've got with them statements, we've added up a lot of stuff. I know there's a lot of theories when it comes to the case, but I'm pretty sure in them 124 crates, or how many there is, there's got to be stuff that we can read between and come up with some sort of... if there are sightings of the Range Rover in them crates, if there are sightings of the three, if there's witness statements stating that they saw Patrick Tate, because you'd know if you saw Pat Tate in a pub. I know there's the guy that wasn't sure whether it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. It was 8 p.m. and he says he saw Craig Rolfe. If it is the Wednesday, it's after the murders, but it's the same time as the meal booking. And you've got to ask yourself, if Craig Rolfe really is in a pub at 8:30 on the Wednesday evening, the time they're meant to be having the meal with their partners, what's stopping Craig from this is the big question mark. That's I'm trying to work out if they really are still alive until midnight or after midnight, 1 a.m, then why didn't they cancel the meal booking? If Tony Tucker is so quick to add 2 more seats at 7 o'clock, around about the time we're meant to believe that they were murdered, if he's that quick, if he's that happy, because in my mind it was the 4th passenger that he was inviting. He was saying, this deal's going to be big, we're going to celebrate, why don't you come with us and why don't you bring your partner? Now, admittedly, a long time ago, I did believe that was Mick Steele and his partner Jackie. And then when I really got into the case and when I read the statements and I realised that Michael Steele is probably about as guilty as the murders or guilty as the law. Oh, I hate that word. As guilty as the setup as me or you listening to this, then the 2 extra bookings is probably likely to be Pat Tate and his girlfriend or one of his girlfriends. But if that's the case, if Tony Tucker's there at 7 o'clock and he's making a meal booking for 2 extra people for the celebrational meal, then why didn't he cancel it? In my mind, there can only be 2 real reasons why he never cancelled that meal that evening. And the first one is that they were dead. Now, I know that goes against the grain. By saying that they were dead before, 8 o'clock, goes against the grain of pretty much everybody believes right now in the Billy Jasper theory. And to be honest, in my opinion, the only reason they wouldn't have cancelled the booking that evening or phoned Craig phoned Donna or Tony phoned Donna Garwood or Pat phone Claire Carey, because he told Claire Carey's mum he was only going to be half an hour. On all accounts, Pat Tate assumed he was only going to be out for half an hour. So what stopped them from cancelling the meal and phoning their partners to say, we're going to be late, cancel the meal for us, phone Gary Jackets and cancel the meal, the only reason was if they were preoccupied. But what would that be? Okay, the fourth passenger has a laced joint that all three smoke and then they all pass out. But you've got to ask yourself why. Why would be that reason? Was because then the shooter could come along and shoot all three without any struggles, without anyone trying to escape. But surely a laced joint would show up within their system. But being drugged is one of the theories that a few people have out there. But let's just say they weren't drugged. All three are well aware of what they're doing and they were wide awake. So what stopped them from phoning to cancel the booking? Being preoccupied, so they're off their heads on something and they just forget? Or the other reason, which is similar to the first, would be that they're unable to make the calls. Now, what reason would be that? What excuse could that be? That someone was not allowing them to make them calls? Which possibly would mean they were being held at gunpoint. But could you really believe that they were being held at gunpoint for all that time if Billy Jasper's dropping the shooter off at just after midnight? It's a long time to be holding a gun at someone's head or just pointing a gun at somebody. But what could be the reason that they was going to return to the lane that night around midnight? Now, a lot of Darren Nichols' statement, there is a lot of truth within that, elements of truth, but borrowed from other people's accounts. Darren Nichols states that when he picked up Jack Williams and Michael Steele from the lane that evening, after they'd obviously killed all the three deceased, that he nervously drove out into traffic and nearly hit another car. But according to a witness statement, the white van leaving the lane, seen at 7:40, 7:50 that evening, pulled out into traffic, nearly hitting it. So Darren Nichols has clearly borrowed elements from that statement, or what the Essex police have, and fed it to Darren. Or could that mean that part of Darren Nichols' statement, in one of his 28th change statement, what he says about Michael Steele showing them the field, with the airstrip, according to Donna Jaggers, was that a plane was going to land or even drop something within that field, well, not something, some drugs within the field for the three. What would make sense is if a plane was going to drop that evening, and when they went down the lane that evening at 7 o'clock, the plane was unable to drop because of the weather. And he said to the three, there was some sort of phone call, and he said, it's been delayed, and we're going to drop now around about midnight. That would make sense, because then the three went away, returned to the lane around about midnight. Billy Jasper's guy that he dropped off comes from Rectory Lane, turns up and kills the three. But ask yourself, if that's the case, and they had 5 hours to wait until the plane done the drop. I know it's hard to believe that the plane was going to do some sort of drop that evening. But if that was the case, and there is slight elements of truth from Darren Nichols' version of events, ask yourself why within them 5 hours they didn't cancel the meal. And ask yourself why they didn't phone their partners. And ask yourself why there was no one come forward officially after all this has been said and done, a few years afterwards. Why did someone not come forward and say, I was in a pub that night and I saw Pat? Like I said earlier, you would know if you saw Pat. The person that was in the pub that was meant to have seen Craig Rolfe at 8 p.m. that evening with a person he'd never seen before, that was drinking blue dog lemonade or something like that. That person 100% said that was Craig Rolfe, but they were unsure on what night it was. But they're pretty sure it was the Wednesday. If that's the case, and that's real, there you have proof that they're alive after the time that Darren Nichols said they're dead. So that should be thrown out of court straight away. And Michael Steele should be released. Michael Steele should have not have done all the time that he's done since his imprisonment back in 96. A lot assume that they've been in prison since the sentence, which was 98. But when they got arrested in 96, they would have been locked up since then. So Michael Steele has been a Cat A prisoner since he was sentenced. Now, last year, Michael Steele applied to go into Gen Pop, and general population, and to be, no longer a Class A prisoner. Now, he was denied that right because of obviously not going along with the prison classes. Now, this year, he asked to have that reviewed, the decision reviewed, and they turned him down straight away. They said no. Again, for the same reasons, that he's not jumped through the hoops and not done these classes. A lot believe that Michael Steele should have done them classes and he would have been out by now. But Michael Steele is old school. And the last few months, there's been a few members of the Facebook groups that have written to Michael in prison. And I've seen some of the correspondence with Michael, and I have been meaning to write to him to myself. I've been putting off, like I say, I'm good at putting things off. And I haven't written to him yet, but I do hope to write to him in the future. And Michael Steele comes across as a very, very intelligent man. Not someone that would use Darren Nichols as a getaway driver. So with the sighting of Craig Rolfe in the pub at 8 o'clock, there was another sighting as well, with all three in a pub. The Fortune of War, and all three, it's a Wednesday, there's no statement, it's just on a police report. And if it's true, then all three were 100% alive after the time we're meant to believe they were killed. And also, there is meant to be a statement out there floating around, I've not officially seen it, or a police report, of 3 people on the Retterton Turnpike that got into an altercation with 3 people that were described exactly the same as the 3 deceased, in the Range Rover, in the blue metallic Range Rover. Like I said, I've never seen this statement, and the police only took a statement from the driver, but the passengers said the exact same thing as the driver, describing Pat, Tony and Craig, all 3 in the Range Rover, and this was around about 11 p.m. If this is true. And this was at the Retterton Turnpike, which, I mean, that within itself says they're returning to the lane. Why? My personal opinion is the reason that we're at that lane is to do a deal. They've been seen at that lane several times on the weeks and the days leading up to the murders, especially that last day, seen several times. I mean, if you go through the amounts of times a Range Rover or a Range Rover was seen at the lane that morning, that afternoon, that day, it was like a yo-yo, continuously, constantly going back and forth. Why though? I mean, if they was really just going down that lane that evening for a deal, meet someone in the car behind, here's your stuff, here's your money, cheers, laters. Why do they keep going back? I mean, common sense says that if you're selling some product, you don't continuously go to the same place to sell it. I mean, it's unlikely that they were down there. All right, Pat, have you got anything? Yeah, come down Workhouse Lane. I'll meet you down there. Here you go, mate. Cheers. Right, Pat, you got anything? Oh, sorry, Pat, Craig or Tony. You got anything? Yeah, Workhouse Lane again. Why you got to keep meeting down fucking Workhouse Lane? Okay, just meet us at fucking Wheatsheaf Pub in the toilets. Yeah, well, can't you meet us down anywhere? So it's pretty clear they went back and forth to do deals. So on all accounts, it makes sense if they were really down there for a plane to drop. It does sound such a... Michael Steele, on all accounts that night, was at home with his partner and his sister. And there's the till receipt. So who was flying the plane? Or meant to be flying the plane? Or was it just one massive lie that the three were so gullible to believe, even though it had been seen down there that day? They knew that lane. Tony Tucker knew that lane. And he knew the person's brother that discovered the Range Rover, Peter Theobald. He knew Bill Theobald. And he'd been to the farm before. So the chances are Tony Tucker knew that lane. So trying to say that, they've been shown a field, nah. If anything, and this is very unlikely, if anything, the three were showing someone else the field. And that might explain why Tony Tucker had mud on his boots and that he's the one that got out to open the gate, because Tony Tucker's the one that had the key. And that's a big, big if. But if that's the case, Tony Tucker gets out the Range Rover, mud on his boots, and perhaps that's when the shooting took place. Just as he was about to step out the Range Rover. If you've read Heath's book, if you've listened to Heath Mayfield's book, you will be aware, without spoilers getting anything away, but there is a part in the book that does mention about Tony Tucker and the possible mud on his boots. There's two big scenarios within Heath's book that when I was reading out the second part of it, the second scenario, I hadn't read Heath's book before reading it. I only practiced before I read it out, but I hadn't read it properly. And so as I was reading the second scenario, which involves Darren Nichols, spoilers, I could see it playing out in my mind. I could literally see what Heath was describing in my mind. I could see everything. I could see Darren Nichols. I could see him flapping in the front seat as he was gripping of the car. The steering wheel was gripping it as he heard the shooter talking to Pat and then finishing the job. And the way Heath describes Darren's feelings and his emotions, I was trying to take it in at the same time as reading it, and it was quite funny because I could see flappy Darren gripping his stick, sweating. A few weeks ago, TMI released information that there was a phone call between Mickey Bowman and Tony Tucker at 5:07 on the evening of 6th of December. This goes along with another phone call that was at 6:27, another undisclosed call between Patrick Tate and the initials PE. If you don't know who this is, I'm sure someone in the comments of this video or on previous videos will mention the name of the person that had the phone call between Patrick Tate and himself. And both of these phone calls could be who set up the meet down the lane that evening. To be totally honest, in my opinion, Mickey Bowman was the fourth passenger. If there was indeed a fourth passenger, in my opinion, if there was, it was Mickey Bowman. And he's possibly, because if you've read Steve Nippellis's book, or if you watched the Mickey Bowman video that I've done recently a few weeks ago, you will see that there is a reason within Nipper's book that Mickey Bowman could have a reason to want some sort of revenge or to just set them up, Tony and Pat. It comes back to a reason why Mickey Bowman and another guy was in, Billy Archer, was in prison at the time. And they told Steve Nippellis that they believed that they'd been set up by Tony and Pat. And in my mind, if Mickey Bowman, Mad Mickey Bowman is what it's called, is the person that set them up, double-crossed them, and was with the shooter that night or led the shooter down the lane, it's not really a reason to set someone up for murder, but you can see possibly why he had grievances with the three or the two. But then you've got to ask yourself, why would Mickey Bowman get them a machine gun? Why would he, on all accounts, be with them several times, doing deals, a few parties with them? And on all accounts, it sounded like Mickey Bowman had forgiven and forgot. Or had he? And that's the question, had he been waiting all this time? It's the same thing with the money laundering theory and the reasons that Tony Tucker possibly was the target. was the intended target. And again, you've got to ask yourself, why was there so much time in between? And did Tony really not pay that money back? The reason why Tony moved into Briarmount Lodge was definitely for security. Had the dogs, had the walls. But who was that from? Who was Tony Tucker hiding from? On all accounts, it might sound like it was Steve Niper-Ellis, but would Tony Tucker go to that effort to go through what he'd done and get in Briarmount Lodge just because of Steve Niper-Ellis? But for all Tony Tucker knew, who did he think that Steve Niper-Ellis had got involved on his part? Had there been some sort of rumour going around that Sid Ellis had possibly got some people involved? Because if you go back to the beginning of this year, on the first day of this year, funnily enough, on January the 1st, with Liquid Bullet, we got the interview with Steve Niper-Ellis at the end of it saying that his dad killed the three. There are still a few people on the Facebook groups and on the YouTube comments that say his dad did it. In which case we're meant to go, oh yeah, we missed that, sorry. Most people, the way they reacted to the Steve Niper-Ellis confession about his dad was the exact same way my partner reacted to it. I was still going, bloody hell, Steve's dad did it. And my partner had watched it again and went, nah, he's talking shit. And I'm still going, Steve Niper-Ellis' dad did it. Bloody hell, it's over, it's done, the case is finished. We know, we've got the answers, we can all get on with our lives and stuff. And everybody felt the same way. There was a poll on the group and it was like, who believes Nipper's confession, who believes Nipper's dad did it? And so many people believed him. Like, the masses believed him. And I think they just watched it again. And there was a poll about 2 months later and everyone went, bollocks. So, talking to my missus, I'm still in the doghouse for taking her to see Origins on date night. Don't even go there. Yeah, Origins came out the other week. As the time of recording this, Rise of the Foot Soldier Origins came out a few weeks back. And a few people saw it and they kept going on about it and I kept hearing about it and I thought, I've got to see it so then I can have my opinion on the Facebook groups and just in general. And Shanghai, whatever it's called, is on at the same time, and then Candyman reboot. And I ended up taking the missus to see Origins, and I'm still in the doghouse for it, like Tony Tucker's kitchen fitter that he put in the doghouse that time, apparently in the kennel with the dogs. But then again, we heard that from him, so we don't know if that's true, do we? I mean, half the stuff we now know, we don't know if it's true or not. But let's not go there, because we don't want to get done for defamation of whatever. Defamation of, can't say it. Yeah, so talking of interviews and podcasts and cutting things and all that lot, unfortunately, Steve Niper-Ellis's interview with James English was cut. A big chunk of that was cut out. I have the original still floating around, so I get to see that bit that was cut. Funny little moment. So I'm not going to repeat what was said, but it's something that you take fishing with you and stick on the end of your rod. Then you probably know exactly what I'm on about. John Wome's interview wasn't cut, which was pretty good. And I'd say I'm meant to have done a rant about their interviews, and I'll need to rewatch them again because there's so much said within them. And John's is a great interview. I think John Wome's interview with on the James English podcast is probably one of his best. Admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of James English's interviews, but I've seen a handful, maybe 10 or whatever. And to me, there's so much said within that interview from John. It's the first time you really get to see and hear John's opinion on the case, apart from that 2015 DVD. And let's not go there, because we all know what happened at the end of that. Remember what I said at the beginning of it as well. I'm the founder. Yeah, right, mate. I don't know if that word's copyrighted, so I've got to be careful. I might just. But like I say, John's interview was so good. He talked about the police corruption and the Essex police, and so much of that needs to come out. And fingers crossed, the truth of all of that is to come. And Steve Niper-Ellis's interview with James English, I thought was really good, and unfortunately, the questions that we wanted for Steve to answer, we never got. We never got his dad's foot size, even though I've always heard it was an 8, funnily enough. The route taken, the time, blah, blah, blah. Even if Steve knew all this, it would have been nice for him to have had the questions asked to him. Unfortunately, Steve doesn't want to do any more interviews. I've asked Liquid Bullet, Lee Mayo is a good friend of Steve's, to try to arrange another interview with Steve. And unfortunately, because of how emotional Steve got within his James English interview, and you can see that he really doesn't want to talk about it anymore. He's gone through it, and you could see that it was emotional for him to talk about it, and obviously it's emotional for him to talk about his father because his father's passed. And in my opinion, and I know it's just my opinion, it doesn't really make a difference, it doesn't matter, but I truly believe that his dad did say that to him, that his dad did say that he killed him, because you could just see the pain within Steve's eyes. You could see that Steve, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of grief for this, a lot of people are going to say that, nah, Steve was talking, cheers lorry just driving by, that's what I have to put up with every night, fucking lorries going by. But do it only, you dickhead. I probably shouldn't I? It would make more sense. But then Steve Niprellis, the pain in his eyes, you could see that there was. You could see that I believe that his dad told him. I'm not saying I believe his dad did it. I just don't feel that his dad was involved in the murders. His dad might have had something to do with the planning of it, and may have heard about it. Depending on, I mean, there's like 100 people involved in the planning of this murders. 100 people involved in planning, and 50 were down the lane. What's his face was selling sandwiches at the entrance. He who shall not be named. So on all accounts, you've got 1 million people down that lane that night. You've got the people that wanted revenge for Kevin Whitaker. You've got the people that wanted revenge for Leah Betts, without naming any names. You've got the Essex police wanting the 3 off, gone. You've got all the people that ripped off. You've got Steele Ellis. You've got Nipper down there. You've got the guy that Nipper didn't want to mention, but we all know the name of, but he's deceased. You've got all them. And that's just the beginning lot. That's just the first lot. And they're all there, seated, watching, waiting. So no, it makes sense why they were down there between 7 and 12. It was a fucking party, weren't it, by the sounds of it? No wonder it was fear boulders at the gate taking tickets. So it's like, I mean, I'm surprised there isn't tickets now, with the amount of people that visit the lane and the amount of people that, go down there, and I'm not allowed to go there. I've been banned from going there, not by Fearbold, by my other half, because she doesn't understand why I would want to visit the lane. Photos, love photos, isn't it? For the videos, and I need some more photos, I need some more background photos. And she's like, you ain't going down here. So, unless I go down of my own accord, or unless Crime Scene the Courtroom takes me down there, I'm up for that. Crime Scene, shout out, me and you, we're going to the lane. We need to do a live video. Get the seance people, get everyone. Like another meeting down there, like back in 6th of December 95. Liquid Bullet, Crime Scene the Courtroom, me, Colton, you up for it? You want to pop down and have a little chat with us down there? All of them, everybody. Nipper, let's go for it. Let's everyone down there. Let's just do a lot and the paranormal lot. I had the idea of going from Rectory Lane to Workhouse Lane, flying a drone over it, and just, I don't know why. I've got no clue why. Just to see the route, and just to check the half a mile route. I know it's probably changed over the 26 years. Since Billy Jasper said that he dropped off on the down Rectory Lane, and then he made his way through the field, and then now see, this is the problem I've got, is majority of people do truly believe in the Billy Jasper theory, and I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense in my mind. God, this could have been like a 5-minute video, couldn't it? A 5-minute statement meal booking video, and instead I've just gone on for the last hour, 45 minutes. It just doesn't make sense why they never cancelled the meal. Now, I know that someone Saki's going to be in the comments going, well, this is why they never cancelled the meal. And I'm going to go, fuck's sake, I missed that one, didn't I? But right now, sitting here doing this, I can't think of any reason why they would have cancelled that meal that evening. And they just didn't give a shit. They were like, oh, fuck it, who cares? I go there every day. I go there weekly. Because Tony Tucker was a regular in that restaurant, in that cafe. Funny thing is, on Facebook, someone said the other day, the internet weren't around back then. And I was like, the internet? What's that got to do with it? Global net calf, internet calf. I just thought, I'm not even replying to you, because if you can't even read that properly and work out what that is. But no, internet, global net calf, it wasn't the internet back then, it was just the name of it. And it was a restaurant in Romford. It's now not that anymore. It's changed hands, obviously, a few times since then. And then a few months ago, TMI came out with a lot more information to do with the Billy Jasper theory and the names that he'd named, and the possible reasons for why the Billy Jasper theory sounds more concrete than any other theories out there, and with the reason why Tony Tucker was the target in the money laundering. Just the only question mark that sticks out about that whole situation is where were the three between 7 and 12. And it's easy just to say all the sightings are in them crates, or any sort of sightings, but there's still a lot that doesn't add up. And, in a way, I want the Billy Jasper theory to be true because it makes more sense, and because it's there now, we all know it. It's definitely got more credibility than any of the theories that have been put forward so far. And at the time of recording this, TMI have sorted out an interview with Liquid Bullet. If you have not watched any of the Liquid Bullet interviews, they're the people that did the first Nipper interview back in January earlier this year. Get over to Liquid Bullet, check out some of their interviews. They've got a lot in the pipeline. I think yesterday there was a post and it said they've got about 23 in the pipeline to come, that they're just waiting to sort out dates. But Albert from TMI has done an interview, and it's dropping this weekend as this has been recorded. And hopefully there's going to be a lot more information coming out in that interview that puts forward the corruption of the Essex police, and possibly more concrete evidence from the Billy Jasper theory, and hopefully some sort of indication or proof that the three were still alive. Maybe there's other phone calls that have been undisclosed that TMI have not put out there yet. If that's the case, this interview is going to be very interesting indeed. And like I said, Liquid Bullet have got a lot of other interviews on there to do with true crime in general. So if you go over there and check it out, it's definitely worth having a look. And of course, the number one channel on the Essex Boys case is, of course, Crime Scene to Courtroom. And Crime Scene to Courtroom is pretty much what opened my mind on this case a few years back, when I got reinterested in it after, funnily enough, Rise of the Foot Soldier Part 3, the Pat Tate story. That's what made me realise that there was still interest within this case. And then Crime Scene to Courtroom's videos just opened my mind on the fact of, on the convictions of Michael Steele and Jack Worms. Unfortunately, Crime Scene did lose his channel earlier this year, and a few other channels closed to do with copyright and you know who. But Crime Scene is back now with his new channel, up and running. He's got loads of good videos on there to do with the case. He's recently read Blogs 19. The complete edition's just dropped. And he's currently redoing Once Upon a Time in Essex. If you've not read or heard Once Upon a Time in Essex, it's a really good book based on the case. And I think as of next month, Crime Scene Cities, we're going to be going live every week. So that's going to be definitely worth tuning into. And obviously, Crime Scene will be dropping a lot more videos to do with the case and the theories, and a lot more as time to come. Now, in no way at all am I promoting these two books, but I'd just like to say that there are two books that have recently, one's just come out, one's about to come out. Then they are from two people that are closely connected to the case, but these two books aren't actually going to be about the case. They are connected to the case and to people, living life afterwards. One I'm not going to mention because he doesn't like having his name mentioned. And the other one is Carlton Leach. Carlton Leach has got a new book coming out. It's called The Final Word. I'm actually really looking forward to that because it's going to be, you know, Carlton's only other book that he's had out since his original one, which was quite a while ago now. So it'll be interesting to see what Carlton's got to say about what's gone on in his life since his last book, and opinions on what's gone on recently, possibly stories about Tony Tucker that we've never heard. Fingers crossed, hopefully maybe some photos within the book that maybe of Carlton, possibly with Tony, that we've never seen. And his opinion on stuff that's gone on possibly within the case, maybe certain people's confessions that came out earlier this year, and other people that are still involving themselves in the case, even though they said they were going to walk away from it a long time ago. And they've still got another book to come. Because they've just dropped a book and they're still going to... They said that was it. They showed like the books they were going to write until their retirement, and then there's this other book now, and it's like... Oh. And I was suggested by said person that I should walk away from the case and get on with my life. And I've decided that I will do that when that person walks away from the case. So that's a little pact between me and said person that shall not be named. When you walk away from the case, I will walk away from the case. But until then, here we are. Also, apologies for this random rant, which is just all over the place. I probably should have written stuff down or had some sort of general idea of what I was going to say. Again, it was just going to be a statements video, just reading out Gary Jackett's statement and giving my opinion. And I just thought, I'll just do it this way instead. I am going to probably do more of these as time goes on, possibly weekly. Because I do find that I can talk about the case for hours on end, but when it comes to recording this, I struggle a bit. Like I say, my missus has got this. She's got these special ears that whenever I start talking about the case, they just close. They just lock off. It's like I'm that person from from Snoopy. The teachers that she go whoa, whoa, whoa. That's exactly what she hears. As soon as she hears the word Pat, Tony or Craig come out my mouth, or Workhouse Lane or anything like that, all she hears is whoa, 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 because she just shuts down it. She's got like a thing that just closes over her ears. She's like, oh, whatever. Every now and again she'll tune back in, and then she'll hear me still talking about it. Pat Tate, Range Rover, and then she's just like, no, but it's still going on. She just turns it off, and then she, eventually she waits till I've calmed down and stopped talking about it, and then she just tunes in again. And she's like, have you shut the fuck up now then? It's like, yeah, fuck that then. She did me fucking head in. Thanks, love you too. So yeah, it's easier for me to do it on here and then rant on this than to do a head in. I did I did a rant the other week, and it was in the bathroom of all the places, so there was an echo to it, and I popped images to it. It was just a rant. I went to do some audio to a couple of mates about the case, and I went on and on and on for 23 minutes, and I popped visuals to it, some images, and I went to put it on YouTube, and there's a tap dripping through the whole rant. Every few minutes, every couple of seconds, drip, 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 drip. And I thought, you cannot drop this on YouTube, because you've got a tap dripping and it's really annoying, and it's going to do people's head in, and they're going to be like, what the hell did you do it in the bathroom with an echo and a tap dripping? So I might just throw it in under this, because there's a few good bits in there, I think, if I remember rightly. So I might just throw it in under this. So if this just merges into some random tap dripping bathroom rant, then you know what it is. But for now, it's goodbye from me, and I'll see you on the next one, which hopefully should be pretty soon. Take care. See you soon. See you on the flip side. Thanks for listening, if you did. And if you really got toward the end of this after 53 minutes, then you probably need about as much help as I do. The random person sat at work in the early hours of the morning talking to his phone because his missus has just had enough. Do you know what I mean? She don't want to hear a whoa, whoa, whoa on the phone anymore. So you take care, and I'll see you soon. And a shout out to Darren. I hope you're well, and you better be writing that novel, mate. You better be writing that sequel, because we all want it, and Crime Scene the Courtroom is gagging to read that out on his channel. So get that writing. And just before I go, I'd like to apologise for my Michael Steele voice that I'd done on the video, from the transcript video of the calls between Michael Steele and Billy and John, the IRA, the Irish police pretending to be the IRA. My Michael Steele's voice has been compared to Gordon Ramsay. Thank you very much, Crime Syndicatorium. I don't think it sounds like Gordon Ramsay. It does sound a bit, hello, ta-ta. So, yeah, a bit embarrassed by that, actually, because we all know that Michael Steele doesn't sound like that. But to be honest with you, if I didn't do Billy and John in Irish, I had to define the difference between, the Irish police cops and Michael. And like I say, we know he doesn't sound like that. But that's what I used to envision him sound like back before we heard the audio of Michael. But apologies for anyone listening to that and found that difficult to listen to, because I did sound like an idiot doing it. But see you next time. Take care.